Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 293 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed Big Eleanor Records founder Danny NoNo. Danny is based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He was originally a punk drummer, and I believe he might still do some drumming, I'm not really sure, but he talked about his transition from being a drummer, being involved in the punk scene, to founding Big Eleanor, which is more of a hip-hop based label. He talked about some of the artists signed to him, the importance of being independent. He talked about his overall goals for the label, and again, kind of backtracking, I got in touch with Danny via Instagram. I believe he reached out to me, and he actually discovered my work through Mike Bauman. Shout out to Mike, the host of the March 4th podcast, one of my favorite people. And, he reached out to me about being on the show, and I was excited to, discuss things with him and discuss his journey. But like I said, touching on the label, the goals for the label. We also had a pretty cool discussion about some of the things he does outside of working with these artists, which involves a lot of reading and listening to other types of music as well, and really just being a student of art. And we talked about the importance of reading. I asked him for some book recommendations as well, which is pretty cool. I don't think we've ever touched too much on reading, but I think it is important to, talk about different art forms and different forms of creative outlets that people can have outside of just making music. And that's obviously something I try to hammer home a lot on the show. And then Danny just kind of gave me the outline for what 2026 is going to look like primarily for Big Eleanor and for everybody involved. And I think there's a lot of trajectory there with what he's doing. He's putting in a lot of work to make sure that himself, but everybody else under the label has success. So shout out to Danny for stopping by this week. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy this one. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, well, this is episode 293, and we usually have the guests kind of just give a brief introduction about themselves. Obviously you wear a few different hats, but obviously the big one is being the founder of Big Eleanor Records. So go ahead and just, introduce yourself for those that might not know, and let us know what you do.
Okay, yeah, good evening. This is Danny NoNo of Big Eleanor Records, owner or creator of Big Eleanor, and then manage a couple artists who I consider teammates or partners in this all. And my goal is just to push creativity as far as it can go in the purest way.
Awesome, man. And again, thank you for reaching out to be on this show. And like I just said, you've been on a lot of shows. Like I see you putting in the legwork for your brand and for your artists as well. And you guys are doing a lot of great stuff. So I'm excited to kind of dive in. And I guess we'll start with what was the inspiration behind Big Eleanor Records, and where did that whole idea come from, to begin with for you?
Yeah, Big Eleanor Records. Well, the idea, I guess, to start a record company or a label on an indie level came from working on my own punk rock projects. I used to be a drummer, be in a couple bands, and just learning a lot of the process, a lot of the behind the scenes, from being in the studio, obviously creating the songs, and then doing all the things like cover arts and promo photos, and even reaching out to, other blogs and stuff like that on our behalf. So in the process of doing all that, I was not only having success, I was, enjoying myself more than what it seems like the average artist normally does with that. So I started slowly, learning that my role is not just behind the drum set, and, there's artists who could utilize someone like me on their behalf to just kind of help open a few doors, or, at least look official, quote unquote, because having a label behind you somehow, or, it does change perception from the public. So I just wanted to kind of lend my help in the music world every way I could.
Nice. And I always feel like artists or just musicians in general can always give a different perspective when they put on the business hat as well. Because I feel like it's one thing for someone that just invests in a lot of different businesses, or maybe they just have music as one of the things that they're involved in, to do something like launch a label. But I feel like they can't give the type of unique perspective that someone that is in music can give. So I think it's pretty
Correct.
cool for you to be able to do that. And I guess, another question would be, what were the big challenges? Let's say the first year of doing the label, or the first couple years of doing the label. What was the biggest challenges? Was it finding artists? Was it trying to figure out how to promote these artists? Or, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the biggest challenges that I first overcame or had to overcome. Fortunately enough, I did find the first artist I was started working with kind of right away. But that was, I'll consider that somewhat luck, like right place, right time. But once I had someone and we started moving, it was now me, a label in just the pond of every other label, from major to small to everywhere in between. So it's like, now it's like, how do I compete with the people who have the unlimited resources, who have the unlimited funds? So it's kind of finding your own like avenue within that, and your own way within that, because you don't have those resources. So that was, one of the first, and still kind of overcoming that challenge. But that was kind of like the main challenge. Like, okay, how can we maneuver, a field that has the biggest companies? It's like, a small store competing with Walmart. It's like you have to find your way in and your way around it. So that was the first fun, is like, what's our style?
Yeah.
What do we represent? How are we going to conduct ourselves? And kind of figuring out what that Big Eleanor like mindset was kind of like the first, I wouldn't say obstacle, because it wasn't easy or hard, but that was like the first challenge, where it's like, we can't really do anything else unless we like really know what we're about and how we're going to approach the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how I think that's a big thing from just a branding perspective as well. You got to kind of get like you said, you got to identify what your brand is all about, and just what is the story you're trying to tell. And for you, you said you have a punk rock background. So what landed you to want to work with more like hip hop artists? Because obviously most of the artists signed to you are hip hop acts. So how did you kind of land upon that lane?
Yeah, so at the time period in my life, I was making punk rock music, but I was really really like dedicated to studying hip hop, and hip hop is what really was catching my attention at that time. Once I kind of like made the shift from more of a rock mindset to like into like starting to study the hip hop I missed in my life, I really just like dove deep into that. So then when I started, putting out my own projects or playing in bands, it's like, okay, in theory I can cover this stuff over here. I can't make hip hop. I can't rap. I'm not here to kind of study that part of it, but I really need to give back to that community, because that community, saved my life for years and years and years. So it's like, I need to use my talents to also give back. So it's like, I don't have the physical ability to rap or make beats, but I do have this creative ability and this way to make connections. And it's like, let me just use that in this world.
Yeah. Another way to bridge the gap for sure, which I think is very good to do. And give us a rundown of the artists that you currently have on the roster, and tell us a little bit about each one. You don't have to give like a full synopsis, but give us kind of a brief rundown of who you got under the label.
Right now the team is 3 artists, and then myself, so 4 members of the Big Eleanor team. You have Shaw Calhoun. He's from near DC. He's like more of like an underground boom bap, like kind of like the dustier underground kind of sound. And that's just kind of keeping it simple. And then we have Adrian Rose. He's from Central Pennsylvania, kind of near where I'm at. He has like a soulful R&B kind of approach. He does get on like the hip hop side, but it's more of like a soulful approach, or like something like that. And then we have Laddie Moran, who is from Lancaster City, and he kind of like approaches like more of like a straightforward kind of modern political-ish kind of approach to his lyricism and ideas. So a little bit of a range of hip hop covered.
Yeah.
We're not just like one style. It's like we got one guy doing this, one guy doing this, and one guy doing that.
Yeah, for sure. Which I think is super important, because it gives it some variety as well. For those that are looking to kind of check out each one of the artists as well. And Shaw Calhoun just followed me like a couple days ago on Instagram.
Yeah.
I got to dive into his stuff, because I'm really liking what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
from him and what he's putting out, which is super exciting. And are you guys doing like more? Obviously, they have their own solo work going on. Are you guys doing more of like collaborative efforts too, like compilations where you're all coming together and working on a lot of music and putting things out?
Kind of like, so there's an idea of like a group project, but as time keeps going on, since we've like integrated this as a team, because Shaw's been around for longer than Laddie and Adrian, they came on a little bit, more recent.
Yeah.
But since we've like kind of integrated everyone and everyone is working, very connected, there has been a lot more songs popping up with, this guy and this guy, where before these guys were not really like Shaw didn't have Laddie or Adrian. Fortunately enough, what's cool is Adrian does majority of the recording and mixing for Laddie. So in the process of recording Laddie, obviously he's in the middle of the making of the albums and the songs, so he's the most in tune. So he has his hands all over, Laddie's music more than not too. He produces a lot of Laddie's stuff. So Laddie and Adrian have worked together. Like if you go back throughout Laddie's discography, not like 80% of the beats are from Adrian. And then you got Adrian's side, and it's like there's all these Laddie features. But now you will start seeing songs that have all three of them on it and stuff like that. As we start releasing more, I have songs like kind of on my computer yet to be released that have multiple of them on it, which before it wasn't really that case.
For sure.
Which is cool because these are my three favorite like artists. So it's like every time I get to see two of them or even three of them on the song, it's like, this is what I want to listen to.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy whenever it's like, I'm always behind the scenes like, yeah, well, we should just like get on each other's songs or like, you know what I mean? But obviously everyone has their own, solo ideas, and not every song calls for whoever. Like it calls for who the song calls for. So it's like you can't force people on each other's songs, but there are more that's going to start coming out, and it's good. It's a good vibe. It's like you can tell that like these guys just enjoy each other's company. It's not just like, and you can hear it even in the music. It's like not just because they're like laughing or like trading bars specifically, but it's just like you can tell this is like an actual collaboration and not just like two people that just like did their part and that's it. It's like like these are people all connected throughout the whole process of these songs.
It keeps that connection very organic, which is nice that they have that. And I think it's more about like just the timing. When the timing is right, you come together, and having it in house is such a nice thing and almost like a convenience to be able to do that, which is super cool.
It's cool too, because then it allows us to really like define what we are about. It's like, all right, like we can really define a sound, define an approach, define a method, define a process, because we're so hands-on on it all.
So having three artists currently signed to the label and involved in it, is there ever a need or ever a want to expand further in the future? Because I know that a lot of labels, I think the problem with a lot of labels is they end up getting so many artists where they kind of lose touch because they're too focused on trying to make everybody happy, and then they kind of loses the luster. So I almost feel like having 3 or 4 people is the sweet spot. So how do you feel about that? And is that something you are looking to do eventually if you meet the right artist, let's say that?
Obviously that conversation is always in my mind going on, because it's just, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Just like I have to be thinking about the future at all times of this stuff. Right now, I feel like with the 3 artists that we have, and then including myself, like doing my part, I think we're able to accomplish kind of some of the next steps that we're trying to do. So in the very near future, I don't think you'll see anyone new, but like obviously I'm always thinking about that, and the right, if I see the right, like just like these guys, if I come across the right guy and we just become friends and whatever, it's like, if it fits, it fits. But it's one of those things where it's like, I think with what we have in our tool belt right now, we might be able to make like a couple next steps that we're trying to do.
Which is really cool. And I guess what is the big goals for 2026 then? Because that's obviously here right around the corner. What is the roadmap looking like for everybody and what you guys are doing?
So there's a lot of releases about to happen. Everyone kind of like, we're stockpiling music, compiling projects, putting them together, and like kind of doing some final touches on. Literally all 3 of them got music almost ready to go. But honestly, I want to just like work on the back end expansion of it all. Obviously, I can talk all day about being underground, and that's cool, and I enjoy that, and I come from that, and whatever. But it's like I want to see this like an expansion, whether it be like a Big Eleanor connecting with like another label to like, or whether it be these guys like even getting like other support from a bigger label or whatever. Like that doesn't intimidate me. Being a small label or being this DIY originating label, it doesn't intimidate me to partner with like other labels or larger companies.
Yeah.
So honestly, I feel like the art is like almost there to where I just want to see some bigger backing in that end, because I can do what I can do, but it's like I feel like the art deserves a little bit more of a push.
Yeah.
So obviously we like, if you look at everyone's discography, it's consistent music. So I could say, it goes without saying that Shaw's going to put out more songs, and we do that, like so it's like now it's like, well, what can I do on the back end? And I really want to expand where the space these guys take up in the industry. Like I feel like right now we're a small space, and that's cool, and we're killing it in this small space, but I want to take up a little more space.
Yeah. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. And that's about that, growing, expanding, and really just elevating everybody's, brand and music and what they're doing, which is super cool. And everybody can kind of win together at that point. And I think the good thing about being like an independent label too is it gives you that flexibility and freedom to be able to work with whoever you want, really. And you can kind of take it there, and as long as the partnership makes sense, it's like, yeah, you could make any of those things happen, which is super cool. That could even go for like brand deals and like things like that as well. Which I think is super cool. I guess we'll shift now more toward yourself and toward like some more life-related things, personal things. Sure. Obviously, running a label, I can imagine, very stressful at times, very hectic sometimes. Obviously, some weeks are probably busier than others. But let's say when you're not focused on the artist, you're not focused on the label, what are you doing to kind of free your mind, recharge the batteries, things like that? Any hobbies, any day-to-day activities that kind of help you kind of hit the reset button a little bit?
Yeah, so I study a lot of what I'm interested in. So like if I'm not working on music, I'm listening to music. Listening to music that I missed over the past 3 months because I was worried about this guy's project. So listening to a lot of different kinds of music. Listen to and read a lot of books. I feel like my brain is always moving, so it's not one of those things where I can just like sit down and go to sleep or anything like that. So a lot of just like head down on my studies of reading and writing literature, and then a lot of listening to music.
Yeah, for sure.
Just casually listen to music, like, because like there's two styles of listening to music for me. There's like casual, and then there's also like I'm listening to like study and take inspiration and like kind of like dig in. So there's a lot of just like I don't turn my brain off, but I just keep it active on a couple other things, which
Yeah.
is reading and still listening to music.
It's good to be able to keep wearing the hat of being a fan of the art as well, because I've dealt with that myself, where I'm like I have to kind of just allow myself to enjoy somebody else's stuff every once in a while, which is super important. Do you have any book recommendations? Because I've been trying to get back into reading. I haven't read a book in probably a year.
I mean,
so
the way where my mind goes and stuff, I'm big like Dostoevsky, so I always like fucking stumble through his name, Fred Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
Fan. His book The Idiot is a big inspiration to me. It kind of plods along and it's really long, but for some like the way that I like view the universe and everything, like it really just like kind of I relate to that book.
Yeah.
And his other books, Crime and Punishment, Notes from the Underground. His big three are like, those are like my kind of go-tos right now. I study a lot of like philosophy and things about music scenes, but that's like very specific. So we're just talking general books.
Yeah.
The Idiot's like one of my biggest like inspiration as an artist and as just like kind of like a newly founded, writer as well, or like, someone who casually likes to write too.
That's awesome, and that's definitely something I'm gonna have to tap in with, because I always kind of ask that. That isn't a question that comes up a lot in this podcast, but I'm someone that I do enjoy. I've always enjoyed stories and being able to kind of dive into books and things like that. And I always view it like music, because it's like what you just said. If it resonates on that type of level, then like you'll probably even revisit it at times and be like, wow, I can learn more even going back in on this as well.
I feel like if you wrote a well-written book like that, I just feel like that's like the highest like peak of like artistic like expression, like you know what I mean, like painting, between like all the mediums. Like for some reason to me, like I feel like just writing a book seems like the most like focused and intentional and direct and just like no fat to the art like way of expression, because it's just like you gotta use your words to express things as best and as clear as possible. Whereas like painting and music, it's like be abstract, be wild, leave it up for interpretation. Like a book, like you don't really do that. You gotta fucking tell the story or people aren't gonna know what's going on. So it's like to me, like reading's always, and that's why I'm like very interested in even like learning to potentially write and stuff, because it's like if you can master writing like an actual like novel that people resonate with, I feel like that's even more potentially difficult or focused or time consuming or just something than like even music is.
That was what I was going to say, is time consuming. I feel like it could take years for you to actually write, depending on how long it is, obviously, because not all books are the same length. But if you were trying to write like let's say an autobiography or something, it's like, wow, that's a lot of work to be able to put in.
That's what I'm saying, to write like a well-written, like, because I was like, oh, like how long would it take to write a good 15 chapter book? And I'm like, that would take like if you or I started that right now, like that would take us like forever. So long until we felt like we have something that's like presentable to the world. And that's like no offense to you or myself, it's just like it just seems, whereas like music to me is like I feel like I could make something in way less time that is equally as, the sentiment is still expressed as clear as possible. Whereas like just again, a book is just so hard to get that sentiment across. You just gotta be so focused and clear and direct. And
I'd be willing to say I could probably crank out like 20 plus albums in the time it would take me to write a book, maybe more, because it's just easier to make songs than it is to make that. But very interesting.
I agree, and that's why I'm just like and even just like because I mean consuming it is obviously like that task too. It's like you can listen to an album 100 times by the time you're done reading a book, but it's like to even like get a book, you got to sit and like highlight and then go back, and it's like, and obviously like there's albums that again you can get that across and make you feel that way, but to write a book is just like, to me, I'm just like always applaud someone like that's just. So that's like a territory that always is inspiring to me.
I've been trying to get more into audiobooks too, because I feel like that's a good middle ground between like music and stories. It's like I can at least listen to someone do it, and I could go like, on a walk or whatever while I'm listening to the story. But I like being able to sit down with a book too and like feel the pages and things like that. There's a bit of a different feel to that. It's almost like in a world where we're always on computers and phones, it's kind of good to be able to do that every once in a while.
It is, but and it because there's some people who I talk to who kind of have trouble getting into the audiobook, and it was like an adjustment for me too, but it's one of those things where it's like, when I'm at work or doing something casually, it's like, all right, I could have a random song or the radio or whatever on in the background, or I could just have this on in the background. And even if I'm only retaining like 10% of what I'm hearing, that's 10% more of what I'm trying to listen to. So even if it's like I listen to a book and I don't feel like I like really listen to it, I still, did hear and take inspiration. My mind was like casually taking that in.
Yeah.
So my thoughts were like kind of influenced by that at that time. And you know what I mean? So it's like, to me, it's like even that little bit of progress like helped me adjust. And now I listen to audiobooks like all day, because it's just like, again, even if I retain 25% of the knowledge, that's 25% more than I would have if I never put it on at all.
Yeah.
And I just like have consumed so many audiobooks that way. And it's like, I feel like, it's not the same as retaining a real book reading it, but you just, as long as you keep your mind, you know what I mean? It's like they say, like, you fall asleep to like Mozart, they'd be like, you let your baby fall asleep to Mozart, he's gonna be smarter. It's just like the subconscious thing. It's like, if you're listening to an audiobook, your thoughts are like being influenced by that more than whatever, Christina Aguilera or whatever.
Yeah, it keeps your mind kind of on the right track, which is good. I don't think I've ever gotten into a discussion about reading on this show until now, but this is great. I need to do more of this, because I love reading. I'm a big reading fan. So thank you for sharing that as well, because I think that's something that a lot of people probably want to do, or maybe have thought about doing, to kind of pair with what they're doing musically as well. Which is super cool.
And it's like one of those things where it's like people forget that is also an art form. Like it's like, don't forget, like writing a good book is the same as painting a good painting, or making a good album, or whatever, drawing a good, like whatever, like because again, like people just like think like creative expression is just like music and painting, but it's like, no, like anything's really creative expression if there's like that focus and dedication to it. And it's like writing a book is like, and I feel like that gets overlooked in the mediums.
Yeah, so many different outlets to be able to get that out there, which is super, super cool. And we're down to the last few questions here. These ones are ones I ask on every single episode. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
10 years ago, that would have been a little before the label and a little before I was like head down really playing the drums as much as I was. So I would have just said like, like really focus up, like no one else is going to tap you in. So it's like no point of waiting, no point of someone giving you the best scenario to play your drums or the best day layout to do this. It's just no one's going to tap you in. Just like start, just get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And that's like literally all, because it's not like I was like not proactive or nothing like that, but it's just one of those things. It was like the second it just like clicked in my head to be like, like just show up every day and keep your hands moving. It's like it just like momentum has carried since. So it's just like just start moving your hands on it.
Almost a little bit of a head start in a lot of ways, which is nice.
It's just like I don't know what I was waiting for almost. Like I don't look back and be like I was being like lazy or rejecting these things or trying other things. It was just like kind of in no man's land until I was just like like really just focus up and worry about your crafts and worry about your studies, and things will start you'll start being able to do some of the things you want to do.
Definitely we'll start seeing the progress once you start putting in that time and that energy toward it as well.
And also, I did not have a self-belief, but just like, like, believe in the ideas you have in your head. Like, and I know that sounds like corny or whatever, but it's just like, ever since I started Big Eleanor, everything I've been doing is like basically like in our imagination, bringing it to life. Like we're literally create things in our imagination and then present them to the world. So it's like that's the definition of like self-belief. So it's just like really like consider some of the things you have in your head. Like if people think you're goofy or like, you know what I mean, like they don't like how you approach it, just find where you need to be. And if no one likes it, go back and just do it by yourself.
You got to start taking yourself seriously, or no one else is going to take you seriously at the end of the day. So
it's just like one of those things where, it's just one of those things where it's like, again, like the second I tapped myself in and was just like, nah, like I have cool ideas too. Like it was just like it changed everything. And,
yeah, love that. We say 10 years from now, we kind of flip it then. We say 10 years from now, where do you think you want to be, with the label and with everything else you got going on? And where do you kind of envision yourself in the future?
Yeah, 10 years from now, each one of the members of the team are going to have like a pretty important album that they release. I always relate to certain albums, but like each one like has the potential to release like, a benchmark of creativity in their specific lane in the genre. So between the three of them, I think we'll have like some like, some albums that were like, all right, that's like a top 10 album of the past 10 years in rap. So I'm excited for that because I know I'm going to be a part of that creatively and all the things. I'm excited for that. And I'm excited for myself because it's just, I feel like I'm going to slowly start connecting with just some of the like people that have worked behind the scenes that are now also coming to light. Like, it might be a little too late, but it's like one of those things where it's like the people like the Rick Rubins and stuff like that. Like that's my trajectory and the people that I really want to connect with. So there are people like the Rick Rubins, Dante Rosses, like the people, Brett Gurewitz in the punk world and Ian McKay's and like stuff like that. Like you'll just kind of see me like slowly being in the same rooms, in the same conversations as those people.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about earlier, just kind of continuing that elevation for everybody, which is definitely the goal. So that's pretty incredible, man. And early congrats on all that stuff because I think that's awesome.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel pretty confident. Like it's not like a matter. It's not like it's not easy or hard. It's just a matter of doing
time. Yeah, for sure. For sure, man. And do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners before we get out of here?
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, man. I got to say again, for dropping by. And like I said, for even reaching out, because that was, unexpected to me. I always love when people reach out to me. And you said you found me through Mike Bauman, which is super cool. And shout out to Mike, as always. And again, I want to say, congrats on everything you're doing. Again, shout out to all the artists on the label. And I'm excited to see what you guys do. And I'm going to get tapped in with everybody over there as well. And if any of those guys want to stop by this show, the door is always open. And we'll have you back on here eventually as well, man. So thanks again.
We'll have to do a 10-year check-in.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's always the goal.
10-year check-in.
That's always the goal, man. Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Word.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. That was episode 293. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send us any funds. And feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.